Amazing, this is working. Let's see. Some better image for this one, yeah. Testing. Okay, let's see. Okay, Satoshi symbol. Let's see. Interesting. feel like those are just looking on the internet right now, trying to find other examples and concepts for sat symbols. Can't really find anything else. This seems to be kind of it here. So these are the two we have. Well, I guess I should summarize actually what I'm trying to do here. So the Bitcoin icon set at bitcoinicons.com has this symbol currently, this concept for the Satoshi symbol. There's no particular symbol that that the whole ecosystem agrees on, like the Bitcoin symbol. Everybody knows, it accepts that that's it, but not so for Satoshi. So there's the one camp that thinks we don't even need it. We just write sats. We don't need a symbol, another symbol that would potentially confuse people. And eventually, one Satoshi will be the default anyways, instead of 0.0000005 Bitcoin or so. So this will resolve itself. And then the other camp that discusses very heavily that it should have its own symbol. And this version that I've called further described as the kebab concept, which cracks me up, is the one that I've seen adopted most frequently so far. And I've observed this conversation over a year and a half now or so. And I feel like the most credible two that have been thrown out were basically the modified at, this one here, and then the kebab. If you go to satsymbol.com, there's a whole rationale for this one of why this is the one to go. I personally am not a huge, it seems just pretty arbitrary if you look at it. See if I can capture this one. Whoop, that didn't pan out. The animation here repeats. So on the one hand, this comes from, this character here. And then on the other hand, it's derived from here from, which I don't know if I find that super convincing here. So anyways, that one has gotten traction because it's well polished. There's a website for it, and somebody really wants to make that happen. And then in open source, the things that happen are the ones that people really care about and look into and make happen, right? It's about the individuals doing the work. So, and we've had this one in the icon set, and some people said, well, there should be more options. So now I want to look and see whether options can be added. So I do feel like the prime candidate to look at here is the modified at. So for email, we already know, like, name at domain.com. So this has kind of become, everybody knows, like, this is email, this is digital address. All right, so the idea is that here, this symbol here, let me see if I can mark this up, that we have some variation of this one here. That becomes then the, send me 100 sats, that it would be Bitcoin, a Satoshi symbol here. And then for Bitcoin, we have a Unicode character already, which is as if not all typefaces support this one. So this would be the same as, let's see, 0.2. Million, 100 million. So this would be the equivalent. And that's annoying to write. And that's why the arguments that we need a sat symbol and we shouldn't just use 100 sats or 100s. I mean, you also write in, if you're in Europe, you write, cent. There's a C actually, cent symbol. There's also this one here. If your minor currency subunit, whatever it's called, is cent, which is for the euro, dollar, and various other currencies. Then you have this one here. So the equivalent is kind of looking for this S for sats. But okay, let's assume we want a symbol. So let's take a look at some of the concepts. And I do really, after looking at this for a year and a half, I would love to hear some more opinions on this. But I do feel like this here is the closest one. All of the variations of the S with lines through them, they look too much like the US dollar. And I don't think that's an association that we actually want. Like this one, for example, it also seems almost too much like a US dollar. So I feel like this here is a pretty good good approach, something like this. And that's actually, it's a fairly straightforward symbol to do here. It's just that when we look at the icon set, it just has to be there. There are some details that have to be considered, and those are laid out here. So everything's based on a grid. There are at least two versions for everything. There's an outline one and a filled one. Optionally, they're small, medium, big. And then for the outline ones, they have to be just single strokes. So when they are rendered as SVG, whoever uses them and implements them, they can be, stroke widths can be adjusted. And then the filled ones should be just flat shapes, and you can kind of see what that looks like in some of these other symbols here. And then, of course, they all should be visually the same weight, which I don't think is perfect in the icon set yet. Something we have to revise. So, for example, if you look at if you compare the key and this pickaxe here, the key feels visually heavier, but that's time for another iteration. Goal here is to look at the sat symbols. So they're all based on this grid here. Let's look at an example of that one. Let's try to find a simple one here. Take the cloud. So this is currently the template for this one here. You can see all of the edges here and all of the subcircles. They nicely fall on all of the units here, those pixel units. So this new sat symbol should also then fall onto these guidelines. So it's nice and consistent. Okay, so how do we actually start this? Let's start by trying to pick a good one here. Actually, let's do this. We have another symbol here that already has an S in it, and that is for this one here. So here, this is actually somewhat similar here. So let's start with this one. You don't have to start from scratch. What's going on here? Okay, we want this to be a frame. Okay, you can see this circular outline here also nicely falls onto the grid. So that's a pretty good starting point. Let's grab this one here as a reference. I think that one looks pretty good overall. Take a screenshot here. And I'm just going to put this next. Cool, something like this. Okay, cool. So, all right, so this S, that's pretty good. We're not going to need this line here. We won't need these little arrows here. So we will need part of this here. Okay. So unfortunately, so it's easy to draw circles or parts of circles in Figma. So if I can just take a circle and I can just say, I just want it to be, like this. What you can't do is automatically draw this nice like a spiral type of shape. But if I wanted to needed just a circular shape, I would do this, press Command E to flatten the shape, then give it a stroke, remove the fill, and then delete this vector, and then have a nice circle here. So that that takes me to a certain point. So this one here, I'm just going to hide this one. I'm actually this will be my helper line. So I'll just keep that here. And I can see in the top right corner, this is 15 by 15. So let's draw a new circle here. We want it to be 15 by 15. We want an outline, stroke, centered. Yep, they all have to be centered also. And the reason for that is that when they exported it as SVGs, SVGs do not support inline or outline strokes. So it has to be centered here. Okay, so let's see. We want to have, let's say, well, let's just say we wanted this to go over here. Okay, and let's keep the sweep here for now, and also make sure that the edges are rounded here. That might be a little bit too far. Let's keep the sweep maybe down to here. Well, I actually wonder what the @ symbol looks like, because I think that's something that we want to be close to. So these are kind of our two references here. Of course, it's inverted. Here in the @ symbol, this line starts, what is it, clockwise? Starts down here, goes clockwise, and here it's counterclockwise. And also it will really depend on what typeface you're choosing. Let's look at Roboto. I see this angle here doesn't go as far. The A looks fairly differently. Let's look at something like Futura. It's a very geometric shape. I do think like the O is a perfect shape in Futura. Is it the one? So actually, let's use Futura as this example here, because that should be very, very geometric, which I think is something we're looking for here. Let's see, what angle are they using here roughly? No, it's not working out here. Something like that. Okay, let's flip it around. Yeah, goes a bit further. Okay, cool. We'll ditch that one for now. Okay, and then we need this curvature, this nice little curve here to the inside. So how about we just create it and see how far we get. So we want the curvature, something like this here, which looks really goofy right now. Let's make this round so it blends a little bit more nicely, but that looks pretty horrible. Then from the S, we also want to trim that one. I'm just going to keep a copy here that I'll hide. And then we want to trim this shape here. That's how far we want it to go. We don't want this piece. I'll remove this vector shape here. I'm going to create a copy of the circle snap here and trim it. So let's Control E and what did I do here? Wrong one. Okay. This is what I want a copy of here. Pick the wrong one. Let's go in and delete this one. Okay. Now we can decide. Probably want this to be rounded with the edges down here too. Yeah. Looks pretty awkward, I would say. So that's just not it. That doesn't seem very balanced. So the trick is now we need to have a nicer curvature that goes into this shape. And it needs to blend really well into this S here. And that's just minor refinement here. So this should probably also get a good amount bigger. So I'll just create a copy of this one. I always keep lots of copies of everything around. So let's make this one just a little bit bigger. To make sure this stays the same. Let's see. Cool. Seems good for now. Doesn't have to be so precise. I'm just roughing things in still. And then that would put, what else? Put this shape a little bit further down. Let's put this at 7.5. Yeah, okay. Cool, something like that. Looks a little bit better, I guess. Not good enough though. So we probably want to change this curve here, probably from this very top. So what I'll do here is create another copy. Select copies. I see we want to point up here. Okay. And then just going to delete. So we have this shape isolated. And then here, I want to delete this one. Didn't pan out. This one here. Okay, let's see. So now this shape is isolated here. You can look at it separately and try to turn this into a nice curvature. What I probably want to do is actually combine these two shapes here. So now we have a single vector file here. So one nice shape. And the trick will be now to try to make this really smooth here, which is not easy. Very hard to make this visually look right. I don't know if I can do it even. And going to turn off pixel grid here. Then see what happens. And now it's about minor adjustments here. And to be honest, I don't think this is like a perfect. This is where you have to just eyeball it. There's always a point where to mirror the angle here, which then nope. Okay, this is what I was looking for. So I get this effect here, and I want angle and length. This is what I want. Now it'll always be fairly smooth. And this is, there are just, ideally this whole icon set is really all very geometric. There are just a few instances where you kind of need to eyeball it. And this is one of them. It's a little bit tricky. And this might take some time. And I probably won't get it right. But basically, I'm not sure if I'll actually go through all of this in detail here, but that's kind of the process here. And this could take an hour of just messing around with all these minor details. This is probably still a little bit too small. But what I would also need to do here is actually pull this up on a phone or on another device here. And then that way I can see what it looks like in context of an actual, like when I'm holding up a phone and I see it in the context of a small interface or so, what it actually looks like when it's in use. So there are all kinds of things here that are visually wrong so far. So on one hand, this is too far left. The S inside the at is too far left. This here still looks just really awkward here, this whole shape. S should probably also be a little bit bigger. This curvature probably has to go a little bit longer. And then it's just, yeah, this open space here on the right-hand side, like this whole space here, this area feels way too big compared to this one. It's just a really awkward shape. And then it's about making these really minor changes here, just tweaking everything, just little by little, picking every single vector and moving it, adjusting it slightly. And then things will visually start snapping into place. And that is unfortunately sometimes necessary, because like I said earlier, ideally all of these other icons, they fall onto this grid perfectly. But I think this is one of the exceptions where the geometry, there is a very loose adherence to the geometry, and some of it is just based on eyeballing it, making sure it looks correct, which is nothing uncommon in design. If you look at, let me see, is this a good example here? Let me find an example. If you're not familiar with this, let's take a look. So in type design, for example, if you look, let's place this here. So top edge of this line lines up with the N. All the curved shapes, they actually go beyond it. Because otherwise, if this O, if this shape here would exactly line up with the top edge of this, it's not in the center, I forgot what this thing's called, then it just would look visually off. So there's a lot of kind of eyeballing here in visual design and typography, and you'll notice this here too. And that's also different based on typefaces. It just has to look right at the end of the day, and that's one of the tricky things to balance. And this does not look right. This looks really awkward here. To be honest, I also think it looks a little bit awkward here. They overall resolved it better. That shape also has the benefit of using slightly different stroke thickness here, a little bit thicker here than here. And you can also kind of make up some of the inconsistencies and unevenness through that. So anyway, so what I would do next here is actually just try to rough it in, not worry about the grid, and then come back to the grid at a later stage. If we even need this shape here, this point. Just like that. A little bit further right. Stretch this curve a little bit for more like this. Let me see if it works better. Let me resize this a little bit. That's another way to go about this one. First, try to make it look right, and then put it back on the grid. Still looks awkward. And like I said, this is a really tricky one to get right. And if you look at this one here, it's actually also not the most beautiful shape. So I'm curious about this one here. Let me see. Are there any comments? No comments. Awesome. So, but what else? What other symbols do we have here? Here's an S. Is this actually it's the same one here? This S here. Not sure what this one is. This one here seems too geometric. This one here has the problem that it relies on too much on its own geometry. So I don't think this is something that you could actually customize to different typefaces. If you would do this in a serif or a sans serif or handwritten or so, I don't think this would really work. It's too dependent on the particular line treatment and those shapes. And if you have a nice rounded font, it would just not be able to fit in. But we do want something that's recognizable just as a shape, but that's not so dependent on the details, that particular characteristic of the shape. Let's see. I think something like these variations of this one exist in different currency across the world. I think I did some research on that initially for the visual language page of the design guide. And yeah, there are lots of variations of these different characters. And let me see if I can find something. Currency symbol. Here's one example. What is this? I can't read it. You find some higher resolution version of this one. Yeah, I think a lot of other concepts, they come from, so what I like about the @ symbol is it comes from the digital space, while a lot of other ones, they're basically, I mean, yeah, they're basically taken from other currencies. Yeah, a lot of these S's with these little lines in here. Let me see, wasn't there one, didn't I spot one here? Ah, yeah, this one here, this one, I've seen this one here referenced as it's an idea for a Satoshi symbol. I think still looking at YouTube here. Not YouTube. Google image search. Yeah, this one is Ukraine. Let's see, Ukraine. What is the name of that currency? Ukrainian hryvnia. That's a tricky one. Oh God, so many of them. And that's actually one of the challenges to stand out, because pretty much almost everything has been done before. It's very difficult to come up with something new here. And something else here real quick. Yeah, I'm sure Thai baht. I'm sure that also looks pretty familiar here. Very tricky to come up with something unique. So I do think, I mean, you have the choice to come up with something completely new, like the kebab here, or you adopt something. So in this case, it's this rounded shape that stands for digital connection, email, access point, whatever, and try to make a modification of it. And I think that could kind of work. And I think one of the reasons why it would almost be nice is because of Lightning addresses. So Lightning addresses currently use same format as email, which makes it super confusing. So if, let's say, one were to turn this into a symbol here, totally wrecking this thing. Then you could potentially, because that's locked, it doesn't want to scale properly. So you'd have, maybe we could have email, and then we could have Lightning address that has this type of Satoshi symbol here. Or maybe, maybe this is enough. Doesn't show up because Helvetica Neue doesn't. Maybe that should be Lightning address or Bitcoin email address, whatever you want to call it. But that's a tricky one though. So I'm not sure exactly how this whole thing will pan out. But yeah, to be honest, there was the reason why I'm doing this call is that there were actually this Twitter thread here. Let me pull up the top of this thread. I can find it. This is why I'm doing this whole thing here right now. more optionality. So I do think, and I'd like to polish up this one here and get it in the icon set along with kebab, and they will be presented as concepts. It will not say this is the sat symbol. It says sat symbol concept 1, sat symbol concept 2. So currently we have this one is 1, this one will be 2. So I'll try to get this one added in. But then the question is, what else? And I have not really heard or seen in the materials that I've looked at any overwhelming group of people standing for anything else in particular. So I think it might just be these two here for now, for the time being, until maybe there's a little bit people voice stronger opinions on this whole thing. It's all a little bit awkward. I'm actually not sure I can properly get this shape to look right here. It's one of those things where you just have to, I think I just made that worse. You just have to zoom in and out a ton and see. Hold on, spiral. Let's see if that actually helps us. Too complex. Turns, let's create one turn here. Would that actually help us? Let's see, 2 turns. Could you potentially base it on the spiral shape? I actually don't think so. And the reason is because I think it will be thrown off. Let's give it a try. It's another one of those things where, let's see, where it might be geometrically accurate, but visually off. Yeah, so this is one of the situations where I could try to take this one. This a type of spiral here. This one is probably not quite the right one yet. And we could see if we could base the shape on this one. And I don't think this one is quite right yet. So this one was, the same one. Not quite. So that would give us a nice geometric shape. What's going on here? split this one a little bit more so you can see it better. Let's hide some other stuff. Let's see how this could fit on here. Take a look back at our original shape here. The original shape was 15 tall. This is also 15 height. How does that make any sense? This shape has a height of 15. Got it, because it's rotated. The width is actually the height. Yeah, something like that could work. Let's lock this one in for a second. And then let's try to align this shape with this one here. And it's always nice when things line up geometrically, but you don't always get that. And it's thinner, see better. Yeah, see, this is where a perfect circle would line up with the grid, but I don't think we get that here. It's a tricky one. I don't necessarily want this shape to, this angle to go down first. It might be the best way. Things to line up. Yeah, something like that could work. Let's take a look. Oh, yeah, that's not pretty down here. I just feel like there's a bump here. And this bump here. An issue here. And an issue here still. But let's squint our eyes. Yeah, the S is a little bit too big for my taste. I think it should be just very slightly smaller. So, but because we made this line up here with this beautiful spiral shape, the question is then, can we create another spiral shape that gives us the exact spacing here that we want? Not sure, probably requires some fiddling. But I've been going on here for 45 minutes, so I'll just wrap this up. I'll go in and I'll make lots more manual adjustments here. Probably end up creating lots more copies of these. Yeah, this is probably what's causing the weird shape here. That seems a little bit better. Okay, but I'm going to wrap up here. This is my first YouTube stream here. But it was super not interesting for anybody who does not care about Satoshi symbols. That's okay. It's for me to try things out. And I made a little bit of progress on this thing here. This could be a thing where it's good enough to show it to a few other people before refining it. And then seeing what happens, and also asking for more concepts that people want to see in this. And then if, let's say, there's general consensus that this is something should be added to the Bitcoin icon set, then we can make that happen. And that'll be it for now. So thanks for checking in.